but I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, Dylan.
Garrett.
How are
Hi,
you?
Garrett. Good to see you, Garrett. Garrett, you're in Connecticut, right?
I was in Connecticut, but a while ago. Now I'm in New Jersey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in Mahwah. Yeah, where are you located?
Oh, I'm in Austin, Texas. I was just telling Joe.
Cool.
I'm in Austin, Texas, yeah. But I remember you were saying that you were living in Connecticut, and I thought you were still there.
No, once upon a time I did, but I was in Stamford and I was in right nearby Danbury, Connecticut for a while.
Oh, Danbury, that's right, yeah.
I actually have a client, Jenny, who lives in Fairfield.
Fairfield, Connecticut?
Yeah.
Huh.
I worked in Fairfield for 6 months at GE's corporate headquarters back when it used to be in Fairfield.
Yeah, I remember walking by there quite often, yeah.
It was quite the fortress.
Yeah.
A veritable, truly looked like a fortress. It was cool.
Yeah.
Cool for those of us that like fortresses anyway, but.
Right. My son went to UConn, and one of his best friends from high school went to UConn also, but he took all these AP courses and he graduated from UConn in like 3 years. And as soon as he got his degree, he got a job at GE and worked in GE. Now he works in Manhattan in some, I don't know, finance or something. I'm not quite sure. Very bright kid.
Cool. Yeah, I was in
finance.
And my son tells me public schools in Fairfield, Connecticut are almost good as private schools in New England. You know, that's what the story goes, I guess.
I'll say the same thing about Rye and Rybrook schools. My daughters go to Rye, so
yeah.
But public school, and they don't go to private school in Rye. So,
well, if you have good public schools, then you don't need private schools, and that's what we're trying to do is find a good place where we can buy a house this coming year, because our kids are going to go to kindergarten next year or later this year, I guess now it is, and so we want to find a good school district. So we're house hunting in the spring.
Yeah.
Hi, Phil.
There's Phil.
Dominic, Anna, Louis.
Namaste, Himanshu.
Hello.
Namaste. Hello, everybody.
I thought you were the road taker or something, calling out, here.
Everybody's got to punch in the clock.
Where are you calling in from, Phil?
San Diego.
It's definitely warmer than here.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I feel cold. I know I couldn't survive where you are.
I was jogging and the air temperature was -1 this morning.
Oh my God. Well, I have to tell you though, I used to walk when my son was in high school. I would drop him off at high school, and then I would go jogging in his high school. What do you call it? The track.
Yeah.
And one morning I did my jogging, came home and looked out the window and looked at the thermometer, and it said 6 degrees. And so when I was out there jogging, I noticed that nobody else was out there, and my feet started to feel like getting numb or whatever. And so once upon a time, I actually did do my jogging in 6-7 degree weather, but I don't think I could do that anymore.
I will tell you, I didn't do my normal 4 to 5 miles today.
Oof, yeah.
I was feeling it in my fingers, and I said, you know what?
I'm going to be on my phone.
Well, a couple of days ago, I was in a meetup with people from Edmonton.
Okay.
So I don't feel a bit sorry for you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I'm not complaining. I'm grateful I'm healthy enough to be able to be outside.
Yeah. Well, I just had a conversation with somebody I met in the Zoom land in one of the philosophy meetings, and she lives in Chicago, and she says Chicago right now is just sheet of ice everywhere. And so she has not been able to get out for a couple of days. And you do not want to fall on ice these days, right? Absolutely not.
All right, you guys, I'm going to beat all of your stories as far as weather. Hello, I'm Anna. I'm here. I'm new. And I was born in Siberia. I was walking to school in -40 or 50 by myself.
Oh my God.
Uphill at 7 years old with all of my study books weighing me down and pulling me the other way.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute. Did you say -4 or -40?
40 or 50.
40.
Oh my God.
Celsius, right? So, but that I am told it meets with Fahrenheit around those degrees, like they're the same more or less. So the wind would blow against me. I'd go, it's pitch dark, right? And I would go uphill and my backpack would pull me back. Oh my Lord. You know, I've never realized it wasn't normal until I was here and people are like, you know, having your kind of conversation. And I'm like, well, what about me? Going to school every day.
So you were in the Arctic Circle?
No, I was in Irkutsk, but it was right now. Actually, it's much warmer. Like people haven't had that winter. They say like we used to have when I was a child. They go down like -40s, but only for a couple of days. But when I was small, it was normal to have at least -20 and many times -40 all through the winter. And the winter is long, you know, until like April, you don't get a break. So it starts in mid-October. November is already very cold. And until April, you're, you know, in the same kind of weather. Sorry. so I don't feel sorry for anyone at all.
Weather is neither good nor bad.
Well, no, for me, it's everywhere excellent where it's cold. Like, you know, when people say
it just is.
But in India, suppose in India or somewhere where it's very hot, it's murder. Like I can do it. Like I'm so scared of it.
What weather is just is. It's not good or bad. It's all in the mind.
No, when it's very hot, I don't like it. But you know how.
Yeah. So for you, Anna, hot weather is scary for you, huh?
Yeah, very scary. Yeah. When it's
That's
like,
interesting.
When it's around 40, that I'm already petrified. Yeah, I can do it. Like Florida, forget it. You know, in the summer or India, I cannot go. I'm very interested in India, but I cannot go because of the weather. Like legit, I'm scared. Yeah, so
we'll talk about fear versus faith tonight and how it applies to everything in your life, not just money.
All right, awesome. Thank you for letting me share that. I'm gonna mute.
So we can wait one more minute, Joel, and then maybe we'll get started. I am expecting more people. We had about 50 RSVPs. Usually we get a 25% show rate, but last time we had, you know, less than a 25 or less than a 50% show rate. So it might be this time too, and maybe the percentage is changing. I don't know, but historically, you know, it's usually around 50%. But we had a lot of RSVPs, so. We may get more people joining us as well.
Well, you're in business. You should be able to take statistics and probabilities. I mean, you can never get an exact figure. There's a range of possibilities.
Right, you got to look at scenarios. There's no point estimate.
There's always a little randomness thrown in. So, although I would argue that it's free will that's thrown in, not randomness, but some people argue that randomness disguises itself as free will, but that's a discussion for another night. And I will another night try to convince everyone that free will does exist and we do have it. But for now, let's just go with whatever we believe, and the people who show up for whatever reason that they show up. And with that, Joel, if you want, maybe we can kick it off. I don't know, Joel, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I can introduce myself. Is it possible also be co-host so I can share some slides?
Oh, of course, yeah. And let me give a quick intro just for people joining that aren't familiar with the Free Thinker Institute. So tonight's session is kind of brought to you by the Freethinker Institute, which is my not-for-profit. I'll put a little bit of information about the organization in the chat with our website and the online community, so that anyone that wants to interact with people throughout the week between these Tuesday night events can do so. And we do these events every Tuesday night. Let me make you a co-host. I don't know how to make a co-host.
I think if you go to my box and you right click on the three dots.
It says make host. So I think, okay, hopefully that did it.
Okay, I'm host.
So that makes you the host. I don't know how to co-host, but that's okay. As long as you're the host, I can always reclaim host if I need to, but I think I can still, oh no, I can't mute people. So I need to be able to do that. Let me see. How do I? You should be able to present and do everything you need to be able to do, even without host. Is it not letting you present?
We try.
Great. So you're presenting. So I also want to thank Joel for speaking tonight. We have different people speak, and you know, I'll maybe give a quick intro, Joel, if you don't mind. Well, you present yourself better than I'm going to present you, because you know your background better than I do. I know a little bit about you, and I want to say that I'm honored that you're speaking tonight, and that I appreciate you being here and talking about a topic that you know extremely well, and you'll explain to people, you know, your background and where you're coming from. Does that work for you?
Perfectly fine. Thank you.
Cool. Go ahead and go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thanks, Garrett, and thanks everybody for being here tonight. I'm going to start with my background, so that fits well. Then I'm going to talk about my startup story for my hedge fund. And then I'll get into 5 of the 9 money rules. The 9 Money Rules is a book that I wrote in 2019. See it here. It became a bestseller in personal finance back in 2019. And I've written 3 books now, working on my 4th. And then I'll talk about affirmations, and then we'll have plenty of time for Q&A and breakout. So this is my background. Hopefully you guys can see the screen and see my slides. Thumbs up, you can see my slides?
Yeah.
Great. So I started my career as an actuary. And how many of you guys know the difference between an actuary and an accountant?
Yes.
An actuary looks at his feet when he talks to you. An accountant looks at your feet when they talk to you. They say an accountant is an actuary with charisma. I'm not the typical actuary, but I did go through all the exams, and you see FSA after my name. That's Fellow of the Society of Actuaries. I am a life insurance actuary, and to this day, I can actually sign the financial statements of life insurance companies. But I don't do that, and I haven't been doing that for many years. But I did go through all the exams and became a fellow and worked at the, so we got some,
Sorry, I'm trying to figure out who, let me just mute everybody that's not talking, and people can unmute themselves if they need to.
Great, thanks, Garrett.
Yep.
So I worked as an actuary for about 7 years. Realized while I was doing that towards the end, after I passed all the exams, that it wasn't my dream. And I did have a dream, and the dream was to be a money manager. And so I asked a number of actuaries who were on Wall Street, how'd they get there, what'd they do? And all of them said to me, Joel, stay an actuary. It's the best job in the country. In fact, the actuary was on the cover of Forbes magazine in 1993 as the #1 job in the United States. Plus, I was getting paid $110,000, and I was 27 years old. That's equivalent to over $400,000 today. And I had just taken 7 years to pass the exams. So all the advice I was given was don't change your job. But finally, I found one actuary who told me his path to Wall Street. And I realized that it was more important, and I still believe it's more important, to work at your dream and to do something you dislike. And in fact, rule number 4 in the 9 money rules is, can happiness buy you money? We'll talk about that a little bit later. Not can money buy you happiness, can happiness buy you money? So long story short, I took a path, started on the path that he gave me towards becoming a money manager. And I worked at Moody's, as you see here, for a number of years as a credit analyst, and analyzed insurance companies because he told me that if you can become a very good credit analyst for financial institutions, then you can be a very good investor, equity investor, stock investor in financial institutions. So I spent almost 4 years at Moody's. Then I got an opportunity to work at Swiss Re as a private investor. And then my whole division was going to get laid off after about 1.5 years working there. And an actuary at Swiss Re heard that my whole division was going to get laid off and reached me and said that there was a division within Swiss Re Insurance Company that was looking for somebody with my exact background, an actuary who had credit analysis experience. So I interviewed for a job in another area of the company. And the woman who was interviewing me at the end of the interview said, I think you're a perfect candidate. There's just one issue we have to get over. And that is that I'd like you to work in Zurich, Switzerland, for at least 3 months. Now, you guys don't know this about me, and she didn't know this about me, but one of my biggest passions in life is traveling. And if you're in Switzerland, you can travel to many European countries very easily. So I jumped at the opportunity. I was supposed to be there 3 to 6 months. When I got there, I asked her if I could stay a year. And when we got to 10 months, I asked her if I could be there 1.5 years, which she said no. But I spent almost 1.5 years in Switzerland. I visited 30 countries while I was there, and visited about 40 towns in Switzerland. And I actually got some work done in between as well. Came back to New York, realized I really wasn't closer to my dream job of managing money, and started looking for other opportunities. Took me a few years, and I started working at a small hedge fund. And in just a few years, I got a call from my Citigroup salesperson asking me if I was ever interested in being a portfolio manager, which one step away from my true dream, which was really to have my own firm managing money. And so some of you may remember 2008. In 2008, the stock market was down 57%. Financial stocks were down 57%. And the market was down 40%. And that was my first year managing money. We actually were up slightly that year, made better returns in 2009 and 10. And I might actually still be there today if there wasn't a law that was passed called the Volcker Rule that said that banks can't own hedge funds, which again, my whole division was laid off and that was the kick in the butt to start my own firm. So I started my own hedge fund in 2012, raised money in 2013. It was called Solomore. It's named after my daughters, Lauren and Morgan. So it's not Laura Moore, but it's Solomore. And my daughters are now, you may see some pictures in back of me. They're not that small anymore. They're turning 18 and 16 in a few weeks. So, but I still picture them as they are right in back of my head over there. So I started my own firm, was managing money for large institutions and high net worth individuals, and had an epiphany, which if you guys are interested, I'll tell you the story in the Q&A, and shut down my hedge fund and started coaching in 2016 and 2017. So I call myself a master prosperity coach. I teach people how to become financially free. I work on their money mindset. I teach them how to overcome their limiting beliefs around money, from scarcity and lack and poverty consciousness to prosperity consciousness and abundance. And also teach people who are struggling how to budget, how to move from negative cash flow to positive cash flow. And I teach people how to invest. I'm not a financial planner. I'm not a financial advisor. All I do is teach. So let me tell you my startup story. I'd like to make this interactive. If you guys have questions and you want to interrupt me or put it in the chat, be more than happy to make it an interactive discussion. Any questions at this point, comments? Okay, well, let me tell you about my startup story as a hedge fund manager. What I didn't tell you was in 2012, I went out to the insurance companies that I had been investing in, and I asked them for money. And two of them agreed orally. And so I went about the business of starting up a hedge fund by hiring various service providers: my lawyer, my accountant, my auditor, my fund administrator, and moved into my office space on 54th and Madison Avenue in Manhattan. I felt like I'd arrived. I had a view of the most expensive corner in all the United States, 55th and Madison. And I called up my two insurance companies on December 20th of 2012. And both of them backed out. I had no pipeline. I had no money. I had cash flow, negative, big negative, going out every day. So what did I do? I could have given up on my dream. I felt like I was this close, though. I had done everything, the whole process, except raise the money. Although I thought I had done that. So I acted as if we already had the money. How did I do that? Well, the guy I was going to hire as my senior analyst, I hired him, and I said, why don't you stay home and work from home until we actually have the money raised? But we'll have a call every morning and we'll discuss stocks. And we'll act as if we're already invested. And we'll talk about your top ideas and my top ideas. We'll go to conferences. So in January of 2013, we went to the conferences. We called up companies. We asked them the tough questions. We asked them about their strategy, how they were going to make money, and if our earnings projections were right. And I did something even more crazy. I put together a spreadsheet of our top longs, or stocks that we were betting were going to go up, and then our top shorts, the stocks we were betting were going to go down. And I calculated our performance every day as if we already had a portfolio invested. Sean, bad day today. We got to rejigger the portfolio. Or Sean, great picks today. Keep it going. We made $1 million today. And we did this every day. Now, I didn't just do that. I did bang the phones. I did call everybody I knew and asked them for money and got meetings eventually. And I remember on January 25th of 2013, we had a really good meeting with one particular insurance company, a different insurance company from the ones we had thought were going to invest. And 6 weeks later, we had a signed written agreement from that insurance company that they were going to invest with us. And on June 13th of 2013, we launched. And I will tell you that to this day, I fully believe that by acting as if we had the money, we got the money. So think about ways, and we'll do an exercise in a few minutes. We're going to make this a bit interactive. So we'll do an exercise in a few minutes about ways you can, in your own life, act as if. Another thing I did while I was going through this process was I visualized. And I teach visualization. It's rule number 3 in the 9 money rules. And I'm sure a lot of you are doing this unconsciously, but I recommend doing it consciously. So there's 6 easy steps to visualization. Set a time to do it. I do it every morning right after I come back from my jog and I've done my affirmations and I've done my journaling, then I visualize. But you can set it a specific time, 8 a.m. every morning. Now decide where to do it. I do it actually on this couch right here I'm sitting on, but I'd recommend not doing it in bed. You may fall asleep or you may fall back to sleep if you do it right after you wake up. Think about how long you're going to do it for. I recommend not doing it for more than 3 to 5 minutes. You want to get on with your day. And what do you visualize? So I say visualization is daydreaming on purpose. Write down 3 dreams or desires beforehand that you're going to visualize and focus on one of them for a period of time, 21 days, 30 days. It could be your dream car, your dream house, dream vacation, dream partner, any particular long-term dream or desire. Step 5 is to picture yourself in the dream. You want that blue convertible Maserati Quattroporto. See yourself with the top down, driving up 95, doing 95, not getting pulled over, your hair blowing in the wind, assuming you have more hair than I do. So picture yourself in the dream. And then feel the emotion of actually achieving it. This is the most important part of visualization. If you could, Wayne Dyer in his book, Wishes Fulfilled, said, make your future dream a present reality by assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Make your future dream a present reality by assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. So if you could feel the feeling, the exact vibration, the exact emotion, the exact elation of having that dream, you're walking on the beach on the Maldives. That's your dream vacation. And you're feeling so happy and calm and excited that you're finally achieved this big dream. Then I say the dream is much more likely to happen. So that's visualization. A lot of people say, how do I do that? How do I, so you close your eyes and picture what you want to happen in your head, in your mind. And I'm sure a lot of you are doing it unconsciously, but I recommend doing it consciously. So I did this for years before I had my hedge fund. Unconsciously. I would just be, doing my job at Moody's and picture myself managing money. Maybe not doing these exact steps, but you can visualize on purpose. So it's actually rule number 4 in the 9 money rules. So now I wanted to go into 5 other of the 9 money rules. So let me ask you guys, raise your hand if you would like to have less money. Good. Raise your hand if you would like to have more money. And raise your hand if you would like to have the 5 big secrets to having more money. Okay, good. So there's 5 of the 9 money rules we're going to discuss tonight. And we've actually discussed one of them already. So it's actually 6. You got a surprise. We're going to do 6 tonight, not 5. But B stands for beliefs. And we're going to do an exercise in a few minutes about beliefs, but I'll tell you a story first. So BIG is an acronym, right? B stands for beliefs. I stands for intuition, which is rule number 3. And G stands for good looking. No, just kidding. G stands for that financial advisor named Goldstein. Okay, that was a joke too. G stands for giving. And got 2 more for you, which we'll go into in a few minutes. So let me talk about beliefs first. So I tell my clients to write down their level of belief from 1 to 10, where 10 is absolute faith. I know I'm going to make money in this investment. And 1 is massive doubt. There's no way I'm going to make money in this investment. So let me give you an example. 2 guys buy Bitcoin. Anybody hear of Bitcoin? Anybody? Nobody? Bill? Garrett? Anybody hear of Bitcoin? Nobody.
I failed to invest in Bitcoin, even though I knew it was a good idea early on. So I know.
I did invest.
I wasn't asking if you had invested. I was just asking if you had heard of it. Okay, so everyone's heard of Bitcoin, right? Good. So 2 guys buy Bitcoin on November 27, 2017. The first guy, he's done his due diligence. He's read the white papers. If you asked him on a scale of 1 to 10 what his belief level 1 was, he would say 10. Second guy, he's got a tip from a buddy of his who says, dude, get involved. It's going higher. He says, oh, I don't know. It seems speculative. It seems risky. Okay, I'll do it. If you asked him on a scale from 1 to 10, he would be a 1, massive doubt. He's worried he's going to lose all his money. So they both invested $8,000 on November 27, 2017. 3 days later, Bitcoin's up at $10,000. And the first guy says, see, I told you I was going to make money on Bitcoin. And the second guy says, I hope it doesn't go back down. And a few days later, it's back down at $8,000. And the first guy says, this is the best buying opportunity out there. And he buys more. And the second guy, he sells. He is so grateful he didn't lose money on Bitcoin. Now, 3 weeks later, Bitcoin's at its all-time high up to that point, $19,500. The first guy's made 250% on his money in less than 1 month. The second guy, he has no idea what Bitcoin is. He's probably off looking at another investment where he's going to lose money. So write down your level of belief from 1 to 10 on each investment idea you have or each investment you already own. And I will tell you, if you're not a 7, 8, 9, or 10, don't go there. Because what's going to happen is you're going to be selling when you should be buying and buying when you should be selling. So I stands for intuition. And I will tell you, as a former hedge fund manager, if I didn't trust my intuition, I either lost money or I made less money than if I had trusted my intuition. So my clients ask me, Joel, how do I develop my intuition? And I tell them, you develop it just like any other muscle. I used to go to the gym before 2 years ago and do curls to develop my bicep, both of them. So develop your intuition every chance you get. You're on the subway platform in Manhattan. The local train is sitting there, but the express is coming in 2 minutes. What do? Local, express, local, what do? You trust your intuition. Up until a couple of years ago, I used to take my daughters to school on Thursday mornings, and we had options. We could take the local roads, we could take the highway, or we could hitchhike. Just kidding. Now, normally my intuition would tell me to take highway, but there's one particular morning, the highway's all backed up with traffic. Now, my intuition was telling me to still take the highway, but my intellect said local roads. So what did I do? I went local. I didn't trust my intuition. And immediately my stomach's in knots. I hear the sirens, I see the flashing lights. And because I didn't trust my intuition, it cost me a $150 speeding ticket. And to this day, my daughters call me Speedy Pants. So let me tell you an investment story related to intuition. When I was at Citigroup in 2008, we had a good idea. We decided to short AIG, American International Group. We had no idea how bad things were going to be, but we knew it was overvalued. So we shorted it. We bet it was going to go down in March. And a couple of months later, my analyst came to me. He said, Joel, it's going back up. I did the due diligence, did the analysis, and my intellect agreed with him. So we got out. 2 days later, it's down 10%. And my intuition was still screaming at me, Joel, it's going lower. So we get back in. 4 months later, AIG's down 60%. We made 60% on our money by trusting my intuition. The first G stands for giving. And I will tell you, this may be the most powerful of the 9 money rules millionaires use. And I know what you're thinking, Joel. If I give my money away, I have less money. How does that work? Well, I will tell you, money is just energy. And some people say it's just like water. You have to let it flow. But I will tell you it's energy. And by putting that energy out into the universe, it must flow back to you. Sir John Templeton. Some of you may have heard of him. Some say he's the best investor of all time. He started the Templeton funds in the 1950s with just a few $1,000s. And in the 1990s, he sold the Templeton funds to the Franklin funds for almost $1 billion. He said that he hadn't met anybody who hadn't given at least 10% of his earnings each year over a 10-year period who didn't have massively more wealth at the end of the 10 years than at the beginning. Does somebody have a question?
Yeah, Jeff had a question online. Do you want to ask Jeff?
Yeah, it seems like the intuition, I mean, there's been research on intuition. One of them is, would you maybe talk about intuition bias? In other words, simply using your intuition doesn't mean you're developing it. It seems like there's a technique and there's a lot of groundwork to be laid to, where you get to use your intuition, like great athletes, there's a lot of training. And then when they're under the gun, so they sort of let their intuition go because they've done all that training and they end up making better decisions.
Right. So that's what I was trying to say, Jeff, is work at every chance you get on small little things. Like any kind of decision, you make hundreds of decisions every day. So think about ways you can use it, and maybe it could be on small investments. That's what I did. Full disclosure, even while I was managing my hedge fund, I did it with small amounts of investment while I was managing my hedge fund to develop it, to see how, how my feelings would direct me to right decisions. And then I talk about in the 9 Money Rules the difference between intuition and fear, and how you can tell the difference by, I'm not going to go into it tonight, but there's a whole discussion on using your feelings to develop the intuition versus, recognizing when it's fear. So yeah, I would say they're consciously try to use your sixth sense, your gut, your intuition to make a decision at least once or twice or 3 times a day. And they don't have to be, life-changing decisions. It could be, which way should I go? Don't look at, Google Maps and see which way you should go. Or, you're going for a jog, which street should I take? Simple decisions that you can rely on your intuition that aren't going to be life-changing, at least in the beginning. And you can do it with small amounts of investments as well. Instead of, in my hedge fund managing, hundreds of millions of dollars, do it with 1,000 and see how it works.
Yeah. Are there studies that show, someone can develop their intuition just by, it sounds like just random guessing, without, it'd be one thing, like maybe you had studied stocks and bonds and done all the homework ahead of time. So you're sort of a little bit more predisposed to rely on your intuition. But has there been any scientific studies showing that there isn't an intuition bias that might throw you off?
Yeah, I'm not sure of the studies. I don't have any at the top of my head.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I found, just my personal experience is that when I was managing hundreds of millions of dollars, if I didn't trust it, I would lose money or I would make less money. Right. So my personal experience, managing hundreds of millions of dollars over 8 years is pretty good for me. So, but I did talk about
experience with money or finances before. I'm saying, like, because you've had so much experience in the world of finance, that sort of set the stage so that, your intuition may more likely point you in correct direction.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Can I chime in? Hi, how are you? I'm Gigi. Hi. Joe, this is great, by the way. You're reminding me of things that I need to do. But Joel, I just want to say, and Joel's doing a great job, and Jay, I think your name is. Intuition, it's not woo-woo. I'm an art and science person. But intuition, really, if you can feel it first in your body sensations. Like if you use it just your mind and your intellect alone, I think that's what Joel is saying very nicely, actually, that it's not that alone. Like you can have all the information you want. I did it once with a big business decision, right? And I had all the information I want, check marks checked and all that. And something in my stomach, it's a sensation or the feeling, there is something to do with the heart and gut that's together. And it's a sensation. And it goes, Joel's right. It takes a little bit of work and depth, but you can just be more aware of your intuition, let's say.
Yeah.
So Joel, thank you for that. And Jay, yeah, it's something I'm fascinated by all this, but Joel, I really like what you're saying about a lot of this stuff too. And as a presently now, I'm a mindset coach. So I'm liking it a lot. Thanks.
Yeah. So on page 48 of the 9 Money Rules Millionaire Use, I say sometimes it's hard to distinguish between a feeling of foreboding that's based on fear and doubt, and a feeling that's truly based on intuition or your gut or your sixth sense. So there's actually some studies that have been done to focus you on, is it fear or is it intuition? So I go into that in more detail in the book.
Great.
Thank you. Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for the question. So I was talking about giving, and giving doesn't have to be just about money. Although what I've found with my clients is that giving even a small amount of money can shift your feelings from scarcity and lack to feelings of, I have plenty to spare and share. And no matter what situation you're in, I will tell you, you're living the dream life of billions of people on this earth.
Right.
And yes, you may be feeling lack or scarcity for whatever reason. I will tell you, it's a first world problem. And so, but you don't have to give just money. You can give your time. to somebody in need. You can give a smile to a stranger and change their day. You could give a compliment to a stranger. You may have a special gift. I would recommend sharing that with the world. So before I go on, I wanted to give you a gift. And I'm going to skip through these slides for a second. We'll come back to them. So I have a white paper I wrote called The 5 Mistakes New Millionaires Make. And if you text to the number 66866 right now, NMR.
Can you say that again?
So the number, so instead of texting to a phone number, text to the number 66866. And if you text NMR in the text box, you'll get a free white paper I wrote called The 5 Mistakes New Millionaires Make. So you will be acting as if you're not yet a millionaire, act as if by reading this white paper on The 5 Mistakes New Millionaires Make. It'll ask you for your email. Obviously, if you guys don't want to be part of my weekly email, you can unsubscribe, but I also do a free weekly video on a topic that's of interest to people on my list. So that's my gift to you tonight. So H stands for happiness, and my question to you and in the book is, can happiness buy you money? Not can money buy you happiness, can happiness buy you money? And the 5th of the 9 money rules is gratitude. And we'll talk about gratitude in a few minutes, as well as happiness. But I wanted to show you a couple of pictures of me having faith. We talked about belief. On the left side is me climbing down a vine in Peru. I was about 10 feet higher there. This was in 2000. This was 3 years ago. I'm 57. And the other picture was me on the top of Huayna Picchu doing the power pose, which is actually the picture on the cover of the book, The 9 Money Rules, as we hiked up about an hour hike up. And so I was actually overlooking Machu Picchu while we took that picture. So here I wanted to go through some beliefs to shift your money mindset. And this is the interactive part. I'd like to give you a couple of minutes and think about some of your beliefs you now have about money or prosperity that may be limiting you. So take 2 minutes and think about some beliefs. I'll just give you a couple of examples that I've heard from some of my clients. One client said to me, "You can't be spiritual and rich."
Oh, not true.
Glad you agree with me. Another client said to me, "You need to work hard, really hard, to be rich and successful." So maybe write down a few that you may have about money that may be limiting you. I'll give you guys 2 minutes. I may call on people if I don't get volunteers. I might have to voluntold you. Take another minute and a half. Think about some beliefs you have around money that may be limiting. And BS is not BS, it's belief systems. maybe take a few more seconds and just finish up. Hopefully you guys have paper and pen with you and writing down a few ideas. Just take a few more seconds to finish up with your writing.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone like to share a limiting belief they might have around money? I was taught growing up, we can't afford that. Money doesn't grow on trees. That's too expensive. I used to get screamed at when I left the light on in my room when we left the house. Joel, we're not a shareholder of Long Island Lighting Company. Shut that light off. Those are just limiting beliefs. That's all thoughts of scarcity and lack. So Jeff, did you have a limiting belief?
Yeah, it's if I spend money on stuff like buy a nice car or buy something, I'm being ripped off, taken advantage of, unless I go inordinately do a lot of research to the point where sometimes I get analysis paralysis.
Good. Thank you for sharing that. That's very common. I think most people, at least in my network, were brought up with some limiting beliefs, a belief that there's not enough, that there's a limit. And yet there's actually almost $450 trillion of net worth on this earth right now. That was $1 trillion 120 years ago. There's been over 400 trillion of net worth growth over the last 120 years. That's massive growth in net worth. And I would say, I can't even fathom what $1 trillion is. There's 450. So anyone else want to share a limiting belief? Gigi?
Sorry, I'm eating. I was laughing because I was raised on Long Island with French parents, though, but I'm thinking we probably had the same kind of parents, but mine were immigrants and it was the same kind of thing, you know, money, you know, we didn't have a lot. So, but also, you know, there's an interesting belief, and I think it's a lot in this country because I'm kind of tricultural, but in this country, there's a big belief that if, you know, someone has it, like you can. In other words, the thing that, you know, what's it called, zero sum game and all that. So you can't,
correct.
And it's not true. You know, you can have as much. Another thing I found out that I love the thing you said about working hard, because these are, you know, what I call self-saboteur habits in your head. I'm a mindset coach, so I go with that. But it's also, it's true. You know, you're these things in your head that say, oh, what was I thinking? God, I lost my own train of thought. That's not good. What was it just saying, Jeff? I don't know. I lost my train of thought totally, but it has to do with the working hard, you know, that you have to earn a lot, you have to work hard. No, you can also do well by working hard, or you can also do well by knowing what to do with your money. And I always tell people that, you know, you can lower your expenses or increase your work. So there are different ways to do it, or invest or other things. So I like that you mentioned that. And yeah, there's so many other ways we're told this.
What I found is like, so 2008 was the first year I got paid for my performance.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, it's objective. It's completely objective. It's not subjective anymore. My whole career was subjective. My boss and a group of people decided what I was going to get paid for a bonus or salary increase. But now it's all objective. If I make Citigroup $1 million, they're going to pay me $200,000, $150,000. So I worked really hard. You know, it was 2008, but I worked really hard. I worked 60, 70 hours a week, and the market was down 40%. I was managing a hedge fund, so at least I could pick some stocks that might go down and short them and make money that way. But I barely made any money. And I realized that I needed to work smarter and not harder, and have my money literally worked for me. And so 2009, I was more present with my kids, and I worked smarter and worked about 3/4 the amount of hours and made 10 times the amount of money I made in 2008.
Right.
So let's go to the next slide. And what are some empowering beliefs that you want to possess? They don't need to be beliefs that you currently have about money, but maybe beliefs you want to cultivate. Maybe it's some of the things I've already said. So take a couple of minutes and think about some empowering beliefs you might want to have about money or prosperity or financial freedom. Thanks for the question, Beth. So the text is, the number is 66866. Here, I'll put it in the chat while you guys are doing the empowering beliefs.
Text. Mm-hmm.
Maybe take a few more seconds just writing down some empowering beliefs that you want to possess around money. Okay, anyone want to volunteer some empowering beliefs that they want to possess or maybe already possess? Dominic?
Yeah, hi. Yeah, so basically they are the opposites of the beliefs I had already. So I put down it is not necessary to work hard to get money. One thing I had, which was my belief, is that it is to be stressed and unhappy pursuing money. So I think it is not necessary to be stressed and unhappy.
Right, to be at ease, to be calm. What I teach is to shift your beliefs from stress and worry to eagerness and fun. Imagine when you think about money, you can think that it's fun. It's just a game, because it is just a game. It's all in our head, right? And when it becomes the game, that it's fun. Like, let's make it a game.
All right. And then, one other thing was that it's not possible to be virtuous while like pursuing money.
Right. Well, that was what we talked about earlier. I know a lot of people who are very spiritual, very kind-hearted, and very rich.
Right. Yeah. When you think about people like you, on Wall Street, and I say we, I would say common people that do not trade or anything, then you think, oh, you must be really evil people. And
so that's an important belief to shift, because you have a big internal conflict, because you're not evil, right? And if you think most evil people are rich or most rich people are evil, then you have this internal conflict going on, because you want to be rich, but you're not evil.
Because I would be evil, right?
Right, exactly. So it's a good one. I have we'll go into it. I'll show you the link, but I have affirmations on my website you can use for free to just shift those limiting beliefs. So let's move on.
Can you share the link?
Yeah, I'll send it to you in a second. It's actually part of the presentation here. So the last thing I want to do is get you to claim and own these new beliefs, right? So, I don't have to work hard to be rich and successful. I can be spiritual and rich. I can be a good person and be rich. So start thinking about, talking about, and acting on your new beliefs. In other words, focus on new beliefs by acting as if they're already true. So what actions can you take to reflect the new beliefs that they're already true? And I'm not saying you need to, if you have a belief that, if you want to claim a new belief, like, good people are rich, or spiritual people are rich, think about actions you can take to reflect that belief. Maybe you can do some research. So I'll give you a minute to think about what actions you can take to reflect these new beliefs that you want to have around money. Yeah, one empowering belief, Lewis says, is more money equals more personal time. Right, you have more free time to do what you want. With those, I say financial freedom is spending more time with the ones you love. So just take a few more seconds, finish up the sentence you're writing. Anyone have any actions to reflect these new beliefs that they'd like to share? Gigi, did you have your hand up?
No, sorry. What can I mention one thing while
Sure.
what people are writing? It's an interesting thing. I'm a woman and I am a baby boomer, and my generation, some women were taught, it wasn't our place, right, to learn finance investment, although my mother did it in my house, but in general, and for years I didn't want to until I got divorced and I didn't have a choice. Right. And I just want to tell you, I was a dentist for 37 years. So I ran a practice. So, I had to learn that stuff. But, you know what? I had such a conflict with that because I didn't want to until I started letting myself love finance and money, because money, I realized, wasn't the root of all evil. And it wasn't going right. It was only going to help me and give me the freedom I wanted. Right. For me, it wasn't necessarily things. It was freedom to be with my son. It was freedom to travel like you and other things. So that's a really big thing for a lot of women, by the way. And I hate to say that even in my kids' generation, that still holds, which is upsetting for me to see. But
I have 2 daughters and I'm teaching them what I practice. So yes, it's an important part of my life as well. Excellent. And I have to tell you, I have I have one-on-one clients, I have group courses that I teach, I have memberships, and I found that in the one-on-one clients, it's been mostly men, I guess, because they don't want to show themselves to the world. But the group courses and the memberships have been almost all women. And I think it's partly because of the fact that they're comfortable in community. Mm-hmm. But also, like you said, it's partly generational that there was a stigma attached to, being the breadwinner, being the money manager.
But what I'm finding, I don't know if you're finding this with women, but you're yes, but the stigma has decreased, but women are still not I don't know, in some ways I'm finding out millennials and younger are not letting themselves necessarily learn or be fluent in finance. There you go.
Yeah, I think financial literacy is a big thing for me, and I think it's a big thing for a lot of people. And I'm trying, I actually have taught the Boys and Girls Club in Stamford, Connecticut.
Wow.
I had a conference that I did with the Girl Scouts in Connecticut in 2019. I'll do it again this year in April.
Excellent.
So, yeah, I mean, my goal is, it's really sad. My daughters are in high school and they're not being taught anything in the school about
nothing.
Money.
Nothing.
My oldest daughter actually took a class on business, but when I saw the curriculum, it was almost laughable because there was nothing that I teach about business, which is like business plans and money mindset and money personality type. It was, and even the accounting piece, they weren't taught any of the accounting.
Wow. Are you going to put your website and information in after?
Yes. Yeah.
I'll do that. Be in touch. Thank you again.
Sure. And so Lewis said, take action, invest, read, learn more about investing. Those are also all awesome action steps to take. So, it's, if you want to claim and own these positive beliefs about investing, read and learn first, right? If you don't have to actually, or set up the account even, that's acting as setting up the account. It's cool. Thank you for your participation there. So I wanted to talk to you about two things, two more rules. Garrett, how much time do we have, by the way?
So we have 2 hours scheduled, which is till 9, and we usually do like a discussion. We can either do a big group discussion or a small breakout session discussion, as you prefer, after you're done with the lecture.
Okay, so I'll go for about 10 more minutes if that's okay.
Sure.
And so July 1st, 2015, I was on the Metro North train on the way into Grand Central when I got the news. So I was managing my own fund at the time, and my colleague texted me that one of our shorts was being acquired for a 30% premium. It was going to be the worst day of my career. Even before the day started, it was 7 a.m. in the morning. We were about to stop at the 125th Street Harlem station. And I literally felt like I was punched in the stomach, had no air to breathe. I was in pain. I literally had a tear dripping down my cheek. And the reason was because I felt like I had let my investors down. I was a failure. And what did I do? I could have wallowed in that sadness, but I decided to take a different step. I put on a song by the Five Stairsteps called Ooh Child. Ooh Child, things are gonna get better. Ooh Child, things gonna get easier someday. And I kept it on as I walked from Grand Central to 54th and 6th, and where my office was at the time. And I took off the headphones as I walked into my office, because I knew my colleagues also knew how bad a day it was going to be. And I started thinking about how that song made me feel just a bit better. And maybe I could think of some other songs during the day that I could put on to make me feel less sad. And so I came up with a list of what I call happy habits that made me happy independent of what was going on during the day. And I realized up until that time, as I was managing money from 2008, that whenever I had lost money, I was sad that day. And if I'd made money, I was happy that day. And I was not the best money manager in the world. The best money managers make money 60% of the time. I was probably close to 50%. So about half the time I was sad. And I realized that I could be conditionally happy or unconditionally happy. And most of my life, I think most people are conditionally happy. If something good happens, they're happy. If something bad happens, they're sad. But you can change that. You can create your own happiness. And so I came up with a list of things for me, and I challenge you to come up a list for you that can make you unconditionally happy so that you create your emotions. So I listen to uplifting songs. I have affirmations on my website. My website is salamour.com. That's SALAURMOR.com. Again, named after my daughters, Lauren and Morgan. So it's SALaurMour.com. And if you go into the programs and click on manifesting, if you scroll all the way down, you'll get all the affirmations there. I have my list of inspiring books on my website, recommended books. They're not mine. I've written 3, but there are other recommended books like Think and Grow Rich and other books that I recommend. Giving for me has created happiness, believe it or not. I found when I give even a little bit of money or give some of my time to others that I feel better. I feel happier. Meditation, I wrote about meditation in my first book, Mindful Money Management, chapter 8. And that's just made me, more calm, more, my friends will say I'm more Zen-like. I don't get as angry as I used to. Have fun, play some games, play ping pong. I play ping pong with my daughters, go for a jog or hike or ski or play tennis. Tapping is another technique that I learned. It's the emotional freedom technique. You go into YouTube and search for that. I have a lot of videos on how to tap to change your frequency and your vibration. So I challenge you to come up with your own list of things, playing with your dog or cat or, whatever it is for you, going out in the garden and gardening or arts and crafts or whatever it is, to have a go-to list so you can be unconditionally happy before the event. So you can say, okay, well, if something does create some potential negative or sadness, you can have some go-to things to go to. And finally, so the abundance affirmations, so they're available free on my website in the manifesting program. So before I go to the conclusions, I want to talk about gratitude, which is rule number 5 in the 9 money rules. And I'll tell you a quick story. So it was November 10th, 2006. And just gotten a call from my mom. She said to me, we put the cold compresses on her head. We gave her the baby Tylenol, and the temperature is still rising. Is there anything else we should do? And I told her, no, we're going to come right home. So me and my wife at the time, we were on the Upper East Side. We were celebrating her and her twin's birthday. And we cut it short and we rushed home. And I remember just feeling so scared and worried. And I tell my clients now, worry is negative future planning. Worry is negative future planning. You're thinking about what you don't want to happen. So why not think about what you do want to happen? But I didn't know that back then, 2006. So we rush home, take one look at Morgan and realize she's clearly not herself. gave her more cold compresses, gave her more baby Tylenol. And I remember even putting her in and giving her a cold bath and realizing how strong she was at less than 9 months old. And we called up the pediatrician, who said, if she's, if the temperature is not down by the morning, you should bring it to the hospital. Well, that next morning, Sunday, her temperature was down a few degrees. So we didn't go to the hospital, but we decided to go into the pediatrician on Monday morning anyway. Pediatrician took one look at her, knew her history, and said, take her to the hospital. So we get to the hospital and we see the surgeon, and we ask the only question any parent would ask: is there any other way? And he says, no, she needs surgery. So Morgan gets hooked up to the IV, and we literally had to hold her down as they gave her the laughing gas to put her out. And I don't remember exactly when the tears stopped falling down my face and my wife's face, but it was a few hours later. The surgeon came out, said the operation was a success and Morgan would be out shortly. And she was, except she was still had the IV in her and the wires and tubes. But within an hour, they had removed them all and she was smiling and happy again. So why do I tell you this story about Morgan? Because I am so grateful to have a healthy, courageous, intelligent, beautiful, caring, and thoughtful daughter, Morgan, who is now about to turn 16. So what can you be grateful for? Who can you be grateful for? So I recommend putting together a gratitude journal. Just get a notebook and writing down 5 things you're grateful for every morning and every night. I've been doing this since 2012. And it really does change your mindset. I used to, before I go to sleep, think about all the things I did wrong that day, all the things I could have done better. And Martin Seligman, who's done a study on gratitude, he actually recommended to a group to write down 3 things that they're grateful for and why. And he checked their brain synapses at the beginning of this 30-day study and at the end, and found that the elasticity of the brain had expanded in those areas for happiness and gratitude. So it actually expands the brain synapses when you're doing gratitude. So it's not only good for creating more abundance and prosperity in life, but also for your health and happiness. So to conclude, if you know anybody struggling with money, interested in learning more about investing, I have a membership that I started in September that we're doing again in January. I kept it open for this group for 1 more day. You can sign up on solomore.com. It's $39 a month. I put all the content I've created over the last 5 years into the Money Miracles membership. We're up to, it's not just about manifesting. I teach investing and I teach about, these 9 money rules in detail. And it's a community. We have 36 people right now in the group. We have a private Facebook group. And so it's not just about manifesting, but we are up to $507,950 so far of money manifestations. And so that's going to go up to $59 a month in April. So we have 1 more day if you guys are interested. And then the other thing I'm doing is Infinite Peace and Prosperity. It's a course based on the 9 money rules. I partnered with a meditation teacher. She does a guided meditation at the beginning of each week. It's a 10-week course. And that's $777 up until Friday. And then it's $888. We are offering 3 scholarships. So 3 free. And if you're interested in getting potentially getting a scholarship, you can email Chara, my co-facilitator, at info@chara.tv. or you can email me for more details. That's my email there. A reminder for the freebies, you can go to my website for audio files, for the money affirmations, and for the free white paper. Again, just text to 66866 NMR to the free white paper, The 5 Mistakes New Millionaires Make. Questions?
Joel, can I just say one? This was great. I really I enjoyed it 100%. I just want to, can I add one thing I always tell people for the evening routines? You know, you say the three things that you're grateful for, and they can be little teeny things, but you know what I add also that really helps, especially a lot of people who have trauma? 3 things is self-gratitude, 3 more things to be grateful for, what you're grateful for about yourself, or even something you that day. So it could be something as silly as not silly, but I was kind to, you know, the homeless person on the street. I smiled at them, or I'm smart, you know, thank goodness, or whatever, whoever made me smart or whoever made me. So that's important too, because, you know, it's great to be grateful, but also to be grateful for what you contribute. That's also just a thing to add that I find really helpful.
Yeah, that's a great addition. Appreciate it. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So how did you manage to deal with that time when you like lost 20-fold your investment or 30-fold? Because you were telling about the day. How do you recover? Are you like, you know, like it's probably like a big deal to your like you start questioning your abilities as an investor, right?
Yeah, so July 1st, sorry, I didn't give the punchline. Thank you, Dominic. So July 1st, 2015, I had like basically my worst day investing. Lost a lot of money from my investors and myself because I had all my money in the fund. And so I started practicing these happy habits. And what had happened was on July 1st, this company got acquired. It was a property and casualty company, property casualty insurance company. And I was short a lot of these companies. So I lost money not only for one day, for many days after that. But I will tell you, I created these happy habits. And so July wasn't a great month for my fund or for me. But August, as I continued doing these happy habits, August and September, we outperformed the stock market, which is basically the index that we compared ourselves to, the Standard & Poor's 500. We outperformed by more than 1,000 basis points, more than 10% over the next 2 months. So that was my evidence to myself that these habits were working, that we actually massively outperformed. And I do remember August of 2015 was a very bad month in the stock market. It was down over 6%. And I actually I made a decision at the end of July that I was taking 2 weeks off. I took 2 weeks of vacation, the first time managing money, 1 week with a buddy of mine to Croatia and Rome, and another week with my daughters. And I made conscious decisions not to look at what was going on in the portfolio all day, every day. Because I'm a long-term investor. I figured it doesn't really matter on any particular hour what's going on. But a lot of my colleagues, you know, manage money by the minute, by the hour. But that's not how I manage money. But I would generally look when I was in front of the computer with my 4 screens looking all day. But you don't have to. And so I trusted my intuition and didn't. And I found that August month, I outperformed, and September again, very significantly.
So did you ever question your ability as an investor? I mean, like, this could be like a proof that you are a good investor because you have performed, or you just were simply lucky, right? But don't you ever question that? Or maybe if you don't, then is it helpful to or not helpful to?
No, it's a good question. I think self-reflection is always good to do, but then you have the I think it's good to have a positive mindset as well. And for me, that's really important. And so questioning and double, like second guessing yourself on all decisions and second guessing your abilities, I don't think is very helpful.
Okay, thanks.
So along those lines, Joel, the comment about like practicing intuition came up earlier, and I remember back to like, G's, famous CEO Jack Welch used to say that he trusted his gut. He has a book about it, right? So, and I'm a big believer, and I've learned in my life that, and sort of observing when I do and don't trust my gut, and like how things result, and sort of mindfulness about that. What was brought up earlier was about how do we hone our intuition. And for me, the way that I've done it was observing when I do and don't trust my intuition and how things work out. And I will say, like, it's extremely rare that I trust my intuition and things get messed up. But when I don't trust my intuition, they get more messed up. And I also believe that it's like, not to talk about the, like, it's like the more you listen to your intuition, the more clearly it comes across. And so I would say it is a skill that sort of, in my experience, and I see you nodding, Joel, is like the more you learn to trust your intuition, the stronger your intuition's voice will be for you. And so I would just recommend to people, be mindful of it and just realize when you are and are not following your intuition. And I think that if you're careful about, seeing how things work out, you'll learn to trust your intuition more. And I think that's part of, the Freethinker Institute talks about trusting your critical thinking skills, and intuition is a part of your critical thinking skills, right? It's like what you believe is right inherently. And so, I think it's important that we all learn to develop our faith in our own ability to discern fact from fiction and what's right from wrong. Does that make sense, Joel?
No, absolutely. I completely agree. So that's what I was trying to say earlier. You said it much more eloquently, Garrett. So what I was trying to say is develop it by thinking consciously when you have to make a decision, rather than, doing the T-square, which I do as an actuary. Okay, what's the positives? What's the negatives? And okay, this is how I make the decision. Step back and say, what is my intuition telling me in this, for this particular decision, and go that route. And I agree with you. I found, like I said, when I was managing money, if I didn't trust it, I would lose money or make less. And if I did trust it, I would make more and not lose. So I just recognized it. And, when 2008, when things were going really hairy and stocks were moving up and down 5, 10, 20% in one day, and I had to make a lot of decisions. I had to trust my intuition.
I have to leave because I need to watch out for the Chinese stock market.
I don't know if that was a joke or not, but okay.
I don't know.
Bill, did you have a question? Bill, did you have a question?
Yeah, I do. I'm wondering whether intuition is not just, it seems to me intuition is part of intellect, but it's also tied to emotions. And it seems to me that maybe trusting your intuition has something to do with the fact that intuition deals with a more complex situation. In other words, there's many, many factors that does not reveal itself in a graph, a plotted graph. And intuition allows you to, in a sense, put those things together within the possibilities that, let's say, a simple yes, no, or even 4 squares or even 8 squares cannot account for, because there's just a surplus of stuff that we call, like sometimes we call irrelevant, sometimes we call it just sort of minor details, but they produce a much more complex relationship about the basic structure that might be important that if you ignore. So maybe that's what it is.
I will say, from my perspective, intuition, I will say, is your sixth sense, or it's maybe accumulated information from, and I believe we have eternal souls, so maybe it's accumulated information from previous lifetimes. If people believe that, I do. So it could be, you know, a lot more information than we're consciously aware of, and so it's helpful in making decisions because it has the ability to call on information that we're not consciously aware of.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but it seems to me the one thing that's most relevant to me about your talk was that you went into something that you really love, or I would say care for, right? So if you care for it, you are with it. And there are many, many things that you would account for. And I would call it more like, if you play music, there's the melody, but there's a whole lot of intangible stuff we call harmony. And that, because if you don't care for it, something, well, you know, just give me the basics, is what you would say, right? Whereas at this, because you stuck with it, because you really care about it, then you, in a sense, are with it. And when you're with it, you are flowing with it, and you intuit, and you're being with it. And so therefore, in a sense, you're liable to understand more, you know, and it seems to me, if you don't care for something, you know, you're just in it, let's say, for the money, in the ordinary sense of saying it, then you really didn't care for it. And as soon as the money ran out, you just say, well, that's that. You never really got deep into it, into the complexity and the multitude of possibilities that might be. So that's the way I look at it.
Joel, if you don't mind, if I share something, you mentioned like the sort of, I think you referred to like the T blocker, or like an analytical approach. I developed this 4 blocker, which I look at as like, whether something is rationally justified by the mind. I like doing the rational approach because I'm, you know, hyper rational person, but I also am a very spiritual person and believe in trusting, you know, what I would call heart or emotionally justified or intuition or gut. And so the way I look at it is, if your mind and heart or gut both agree with something, you just do it. Like there should be no question. Don't question yourself like that's the right thing to do. If your mind says to do it, but your heart doesn't, only do it if you're obligated. If your heart says to do it and your mind does it, do if you can spare resources, do it, because your heart says to do it and your gut says to do it, go for it. But if neither one says to do it, just don't do it. Does that make sense to you?
I agree.
Yeah.
Good schematic.
Yep.
Thanks.
It's a bit too Kantian for me.
Any other comments, questions?
Yeah, maybe pitch myself in the intuition question. It seems to me that there's a difference between emotions and intuitions and let's say fear decisions. Mm-hmm. Is that fear is like a expectation of something negative, right? As you were saying. Then emotions is basically interpretation of a meaning of something happening, which is not really necessary to reality, but somehow something happens, and what does it mean to us? So, and that can do like happy or, you know, sad emotions, or, you know, good or bad emotions. But then intuition is I think it's really like a complex process of within your body, like a result of computation, but picking up on much more clues than you can consciously take into account and process. So I actually think the intuition is much more closer to thinking than emotions. It's just that it takes into account things that, you know, you don't realize consciously, but they are still there because you still observe them. And, you know, it comes like with you were saying with past lives. I think maybe you don't need past lives to get intuition. Maybe it was just enough to get enough clues in your current life to get a much more precise outcome of your computation, which you are not aware of how you got it, but it's kind of true and much better in assessing situations than your conscious thinking.
Yep. No, absolutely. You're right. You don't need a past life to develop some experiences that will go into the feeling that creates the intuition. I was just saying it's possible that if you do, that could be part of your intuition as well. And to me, intuition is feeling, and you know, fear is an emotion. It's a negative emotion, and it's one of many emotions that you could have, where like I would distinguish between a feeling and an emotion.
Okay.
And Joel, I don't know if you addressed, Lewis had a question about how do you handle fear of losing what you have gained to try to gain more. And the more is what is needed to reach financial independence. This is his biggest roadblock. I don't know, like if you want to address that, I have my own comments about fear that I'll add after you kind of address that.
Sure. So again, I talk about this in the book, you know, so for me, and I think again, what I talk about in the book is most people who are managing money and portfolio managers, financial advisors won't ever talk about fear, but it's a human emotion that absolutely comes into play when you're managing money. And I talked about it in my book because there were absolute times when fear played a part in my decision-making. And I'm human, and I saw what was going on in the markets, and I maybe wasn't acting as rationally as I should have been because of the emotional impact and the fact that, you know, like I said, that one day, July 1st, I felt like if I'm losing money, I'm letting my investors down. And so that played a part. I was managing a hedge fund, so I could be hedged, right? So I was always hedged to some extent, sometimes more than others. And so how do I handle the fear? I would hedge myself more. If I was worried about things getting worse, then I would hedge more. And, you know, I know you can do that as an individual investor as well. There's many ways to do that. You know, you can sell, you can hold, but hedge yourself through different types of exchange traded funds or ETFs. And so that's important to know that, you know, and it's important to know that you're operating from a position of fear versus a position of intuition. And I talk about that in the book, how to distinguish. There's different tests you can do that I did when I was managing money to say, okay, is this am I operating from a position of fear and worry based on past experience where something similar had happened and I lost money? Or am I operating from intuition where, you know, I see that the future is likely to have this scenario based on what's just happened? So hopefully that answered the question.
If you don't mind, if I add, like, sure. The way that I approach fear is to look at fear as an opportunity for learning. Anytime you're afraid of something, don't let the fear take hold of you. Simply say, what can I learn from this? And an example is you're at the edge of a cliff and you're afraid. Learn, don't peek over the cliff. You know, like you could fall off, and people have, like the founder of the Segway fell off a cliff because he got too close to the cliff. And I guarantee he was afraid at some point there and didn't respect the fear that he felt. And I'm sad that he died, because the Segway is a really cool thing. But like, you need to respect fear, but don't let it paralyze you. Just say, what is this fear here to teach me, and learn the lesson from the fear. That's how I approach fear anyway.
Let me say something about a particular moment you said that I disagree with. You know, when you lost a lot of money, that was a very bad day. It was a down day. And you tried to escape from it by thinking good thoughts. I would have taken exactly the opposite approach, because you got into something because you care about something, and you should not be a fair weather friend as long as it's positive. I wouldn't say that I would wallow in the suffering, but I would experience it and, in a sense, mourn it, because it deserves to be a part of my existence. That's a difference maybe between an investor and human being. And I think you learned that lesson when you talked about your daughter, when she was, when she was like in a bad state. You actually went through the emotions, and then when she recovered, you came out of it and you experienced the whole cycle, rather than say, well, let me just go on vacation until you get better. I'll come back and then we could have happy times all over again. It just seems to be you went into it because you care about something, and you can't say, well, now it's not working for me. Like, thanks a lot. I'll see you later. I mean, that didn't seem right. And I thought that was a big mistake in your talk that made me doubt whether you actually did care about the thing you said you care about. So that was just my thought of criticism.
I think you cut out a bit on my side. I don't know if it was everyone's, but might have been my internet. But I hear what you're saying, and I maybe it wasn't clear. I wasn't just practicing these happy habits and ignoring what was going on. I was still managing the money and dealing with the portfolio, because things were, moving pretty significantly, and I was present those days. I wasn't just like, okay, I'm going to go listen to some songs, right? I'm going to do some meditation. These were things that I developed over the course of the next weeks, as, during my time outside of market hours. But I was managing the portfolio, significantly moving things around for the days as we were losing money those days. I wasn't just listening to music. I wasn't just playing games with my daughters. Sorry if that was unclear. I was putting together practices that I could use in the future when I consciously felt myself being sad at the end of the day when we lost money, which you get to choose. I get to choose how I'm going to feel at the end of the day. And I could decide if I'm going to be unhappy just because I lost money or not. And I get to choose, okay, I'm going to feel better and just listen to a song or do some meditation. But I apologize if I was unclear. I was managing the portfolio, caring about the investments and the process, and while thinking about ways I could improve my feelings and my emotions during that time.
So I have a question to Phil. If he can elaborate more in the, like, do you think that, like, I understand investing a bit since I invested a little bit, but let's say for like everyday investor, when like day trader, you invest something, you lose money, you don't, and some days you lose money, some days you get money. But would you mourn every day? Because it's part of your job to lose some and win some, right? And then if you don't celebrate every day, and why would you mourn every day? Or maybe should you even celebrate every day that you win money? And part of this is like part of the winning or losing is luck. So it's not really, it doesn't necessarily always reflect on your ability. So I wonder, isn't this like a large emotional strain on a
that's
person?
what I was, Dominic, that's what I was trying to say, is that was a not healthy way to manage money, right? And as a hedge fund manager or day trader, whatever, it's not healthy to be conditionally, be conditional on the win or loss, to live your life that way. And that's how I was. I did that for years.
Right.
And it's not healthy. And yes, if you're a day trader or a long-term investor or portfolio manager or analyst, any of those, it's much healthier to be unconditionally happy.
You also find from poker players, right? Because poker players are not happy with winning or losing money. They are happy with the decision, right? So did I make the right call for this? Did I calculate the probabilities of potential success right? And if I lose or win, it doesn't matter. Was the decision correct?
Right. And I guess for me, the market was telling me my decisions were wrong in the short term. And you have to be a long-term investor and stay long-term, and ultimately you get proven right.
Yeah, I wonder if Phil can also comment on this, what he thinks, because he made the criticism. So,
well, okay. Look, I'll first of all say that I'm not a money manager. In fact, I don't deal with money all that much. So I was speaking because I'm an artist, and so maybe I was misapplying it. So the practice is, in some sense, what you're saying is that if you're a professional money manager, there should be a degree, well, maybe a total degree of detachment about the structure of the movement rather than being involved. But what misled me in a sense was that he went into the thing because he loved it. And love was an emotion that carried him into a structure that he cared about, and that provided a kind of, how should I say, a sustained involvement. And so therefore, in a sense, there was an attachment in that sense. Now, maybe once you make the move, let's say any professional thing, then the act of that move, you should be removed from it as if it's somewhat impersonal, and you're detached from it. And I will accept that maybe that I was misapplying my discipline to his discipline, and I'll accept that as a retort. But nonetheless, you got into it based on a mood, a feeling. And so therefore, that's why I find it more difficult to see the separation. So I accept your criticism back. So
interesting. Thank you.
I think my next book is called Purpose and Prosperity. And I think when you really enjoy what you're doing, it's much more likely you're passionate about it, you're having fun. You're more likely, coming from that point of view, you're more likely to then also be prosperous and abundant, maybe not only in money, but also just generally prosperous in mindset. And so, yes, I enjoyed the challenge. I enjoyed the job of managing money because every day it was fun, it was interesting, and it was challenging. And I liked, you know, trying to find the needle in the haystack, trying to find something that was undervalued dramatically or overvalued dramatically. It was just interesting. It's still interesting to me to do that because it's an intellectual challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So another question. So did you still get like sad and happy feelings when like you win or lose that day, or are you managing to, you know, not feel that much unless it's like very big swipe either direction?
Yeah, no, that's what that was the whole point of the discussion. So I am not swayed by the daily moves in my portfolio these days, and for many years after that, I haven't been.
I see.
I do wonder about one thing though. When you're in the financial industry, though, you're actually working. It's quite difficult to have your own personal portfolio outside your 401k because you have to declare what you own and what you don't own. You don't really get to practice outside what your job actually is, right? So I was wondering what you thought about this practice. I understand why the practice is there. It's for the investors' sakes, the client's sake. But, you know, you go into the industry because you want to learn more about the art of investing and picking out stocks. And you do that best by having your own portfolio. It's like let's say a catch-22 kind of a situation. I was just wondering what you think about it. I know that the ethical implications why they are there, and it's important, but I just wanted to know what you think about it.
I agree with you. I think, you know, it's nice to have an alignment of interests, and if you're, you know, working at a large money manager and they have a 401k or they have mutual funds and you can't make, you know, your own investment decisions, it's, you know, for me, working at my, you know, having my own hedge fund, or, you know, I'd want to show my performance. I'd want to be able to practice what I preach. And so that is a detriment, I think, to any of the large, you know, firms that where you're a financial planner, financial advisor, that you can't actually, you know, direct the investments more broadly. And I didn't have that problem as a hedge fund manager at my own hedge fund. And, you know, if you start your own fund, you don't have that problem.
Yeah, that seems like the only way out. But, you know.
Well, it gives you an incentive to be an entrepreneur.
So related to that, how much of your money are you investing, and are you investing in the same thing that you invest the hedge fund in?
I'm no longer a hedge fund manager. I'm now a prosperity coach. So,
okay, when you went, did you invest, let's say, like 10% of your profits back into your own hedge fund, or was there something like that?
Oh, so when I was managing my hedge fund, all my money was in the hedge fund. So I had 100% alignment of interest because I didn't want to have even the perception of any improprieties. So I just put all my money into the hedge fund.
I see, interesting. Because some also hedge fund managers say, you know, there are these two camps. One are like very invested, and the other ones are like, I don't want to deal with it because it affects my decision making.
Yeah, to me, there's you know, there's a moral issue there. You're managing money on the side. How much time you're spending on your own money, versus the hedge fund money. And then misalignment of interest, how, if I'm buying a stock in the fund, why am I not buying it for myself?
It makes perfect sense to me. Yeah. But yeah, good to know.
Well, let me ask a question that's related to that. So since if you manage your own fund, I mean, your own hedge fund, you in a sense is duplicating what you would do for yourself to others. But in something like law, for instance, they advise that better not be your own lawyer, right? And that's a professional thing, not that you couldn't. There's no ban on you being your own lawyer. It's just that you can't, I guess, think outside of the box when you're inside the box. So I wonder, how does that work? I mean, is it wise to do that when you on the one hand is acting professionally, detach, remove, could make these sort of decisions purely on the tactics and the whatever about the game itself, and then when you come to your own thing, can you be that detached from your own thing? So therefore, I mean, is there a parallax going on there? So could I ask that question?
Why would you want to be detached? I want my money manager to have, skin in the game, to feel, that, the pain that I'm feeling. If I'm managing your money, if I'm your mutual fund manager and I don't care, like it doesn't really matter. Well, I lost you 40% this year because the market's down 40%, or I lost you 40, but the market's down 50. So I should get a bonus because I did better than the market. And that actually happened in 2008. A buddy of mine, he was an analyst at a fund, and the fund was down like 35%. And he got a $100,000 bonus. His boss got $1 million bonus. And all the investors lost a third of their money. He didn't care. He was happy. He got paid. So there's a misalignment of interest there. And I'd rather feel be in alignment with my investor and say, if you're losing money, I'm losing money.
I agree with you on that. I think having skin in the game is the only ethical way to deal with, when you're investing other people's money. Taleb goes very deeply into this, but, that's the only ethical way to do it.
And Lewis had a question. Is it safe to say patience pays in the market? I don't know if you want to share your thoughts.
I believe in long-term investing, and I know people who I've advised. I've had clients who are day traders. I don't necessarily agree that you can have, people can make money. I guess, people make money every different way, right? They can make money investing for a minute or an hour or a day. But I think if you're a fundamental analyst like I am, looking at what companies are worth, that I have no idea what a company's worth, between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. Why should it be different, right? It's just a lot of it's based on, macro moves on a particular day. The company's value hasn't changed, except if there's new information. So, day trading, or, I'd rather say, okay, be patient and say, what's the long-term value of this company? That's what I did as a professional investor. That's what I do as a private investor. And that's how I advise my clients who I teach. I don't invest other people's money. All I do is teach. And if somebody comes to me and wants to learn how to invest, I teach them long-term investing. I don't teach them how to trade for a day or for an hour or a minute. That's not what, that's not my specialty.
Yeah, and I will agree with you, Joel. I think long-term investing is the way that I look at it. And if you look at the overall stock market over the last 100 years, it's done, roughly 10% annual returns, which is a lot higher investment than, just about anything else that, from a safe perspective. And, I have a talk I'll do about savings and investment in a couple of months as well. And I also am more of a long-term investor, and I think that, you know, buy and hold is like a better strategy than, you know, trying to make, you know, time the market. You're competing against people who get paid to do nothing but buy and sell and have, you know, millions of dollars a year to spend on inside information that's not technically inside information, but like it's access to data that you don't have as a regular investor. And so you're competing against people with more time, more money, and more data and more information than you have, and you're trying to beat them. So it's like trying to go into a boxing match with one arm tied behind your back. It's not really a good idea, in my opinion. So I think buy and hold and long-term investment is a much better bet.
I completely agree. I got one quick story. So one of the things you do as a professional investor is you go to conferences and you meet with companies and you ask them tough questions. So you would do this all the time. You know, I met with the same company, you know, 4, 6, 8 times a year for, you know, 15 years. So, you know, the management team and so on. So there was one particular conference that an analyst of mine went to, and he sent me the notes, and I was like, we were betting that the company was going to go down. And I said to him, this is good information. You know, it's going to go up, and everybody who was in this meeting knows the company has good information. It's going higher. So I said, we should get out. And so we got out of the short. And so the company was reporting their earnings about 6 weeks later. And everyone who was at those meetings knew it was going to be a good report. They had just did the body language, all the information. And the stock had gone maybe up 10% in the 6 weeks from the meeting to the earnings date. And I said, you know, seems like it's in the stock, right? It's gone up 10%. And on the day of earnings, it went up 6%. Now, every professional investor had the information clearly, but not the individual investors. So the stock went up even more. But most of the information was already in the stock. And the point being, right, that the professional investors knew this information way in advance. So if they continue to hold, they made 16%, not, you know, 6. So there is like you say, the professional investors have a lot more information on any given day than the non-professionals.
Yeah, so these things are technically illegal, right? But nobody ever checks that it's not illegal.
It's not. It's kind of like, it's not non-public information. It's just, if you read all the information that the company put out, you would have that information, but the individual on the street doesn't. But the professional investors, that's our job. So we read as much as we can, and then we ask questions, and the company will, with body language, will not answer with numbers, but with tone of voice and body language, you get a sense. And if you met with the same guy for, you know, the last 5 years, 4 times a year, you get a sense as to if he's a little bit more positive, a little bit more negative, and it's just nuances.
Yeah. Well, it still seems like inside information to me, but yeah, I'm not claiming that you know, I know everybody does that, right? Because that's how you get ahead, right? But
true insider information is like when a senator passes a bill and you knew it beforehand, and then you check on that. That is actually true insider information. This is
right.
a public accessible information that some people are just slightly ahead of the game in knowing it. And that's different.
I think though, reading someone's body language is kind of a gray area, and that's where there's the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. And maybe with the spirit of the law, like reading someone's body language is information that a professional investor may know. And in the spirit of the law, that might technically, not technically, but it might, according to the spirit of the law, be inside information. But according to the letter of the law, it's not, written down information that one person knows that no one else has public access to per se, that could be proven, in a court of law as inside information. And so it would never be prosecuted as such, even if it were. So yeah, so I would say it's a gray area that probably is not not going to be treated as inside information, even if according to the spirit of the law it were. So
well, only if he winks at you, when he says something. I mean, that's different.
Well, even if it's not a wink, right? If it's just a tone of voice, but the professional investor knows this guy so well that he knows his tone of voice sounds a little doom and gloom, and he's like, "Oh, we're okay, we're gonna be fine," and he's like, and the tone of voice isn't transcribed, and so people who read the transcription, and but then they could listen to the call, and if one of the novice investors has been listening to every one of those investor meetings and picked up on that tone of voice, they could have picked up on the same thing. But like Joel said, like, it's not their job. They don't have the time. And like I said, they're not a professional investor. They don't have the time to invest like a professional investor does, and to notice that level of nuance and body language. So actually, I kind of stand corrected because those investor calls are public. And so anyone could listen to the tone of voice and the body language and pick it up as well. So.
Well, sorry to interrupt, Garrett. There's two different things. And Lewis was asking the question, actually. So there's the earnings calls that are public now, and they're on the website or on different sites. So the earnings calls are available for all individual and professional investors, and you can listen to them live or the recordings. But then there are the conferences, and those are sponsored by the investment banks. And unless you're paying them a lot of commissions, you don't even get, even as a professional investor, you don't get access to the company meetings. So like you could watch, the presentation that Morgan Stanley does at its own conference is public, but then they have meetings, the CEO and president and CFO have meetings with all the investors who attend that conference throughout that day. And that's private.
Yeah. And so there is kind of, non-public information that professional investors get. So then I guess my original point stands. I correct my correction. So I want to sort of wrap up. If there are any last minute questions, we could ask them, but it's a little after 9 and I want to be respectful of the 2-hour limit that we have. It's a healthy amount of time, and it's been a super interesting chat. And if anyone has any urgent last minute questions, I'm happy to let them ask, but otherwise I want to wrap up. All right. Well,
thank you, Garrett. Appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Joel, for talking, for sharing your wisdom, for answering all the questions. And thank you, everybody, for participating and being a part of this. I would love for people to join the online community and be a part of the conversations going on there. We've had some great conversations over the last couple of weeks, and would love to stay in touch with you all and keep talking about how we can be the best version of ourselves, which is the goal of the Freethinker Institute, to sort of help us all in personal and professional development and in professional networking. So thanks a lot, everybody, and hope everybody has a great night.
Thank you. Thank you, Garrett.
Thanks, Garrett.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.